Welcome to Small Business Saturdays video series with your host and my husband.
And my dad, Aaron Montgomery.
Join the conversation.
Let's talk some business.
All right. Good morning. Welcome into Small Business Saturdays. My name's Aaron Montgomery, and you can find me over at oursuccessgroup.com. Thank you guys for tuning in. Had a little bit of technical difficulty there, but you guys are here. All right. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today, we're going to talk about overcoming perfectionism and how we do that, right? So, appreciate that those of you that are tuned in live, we appreciate you being here. But let's talk about this, right? Let's talk about perfectionism. Let's dive right into this because I think we've got a lot to cover today. And I'd say this. I'd say that, we all probably have a bit of perfectionism in us, right? I know I do. So, maybe if you are listening to the live version here, you can pop in the comments. Do you have some perfectionism in you? Let's all just, raise our hands and be okay with that. We're in a safe space here that we can do that. But how many times, have we taken hours and hours and hours to just make tweaks to things and just keep pushing it forward without actually putting it out there? And really then looking back in hindsight, we were the only ones that would notice if we made that change or not, right? So that's one form of perfectionism. Or how about those times where we never move forward because we couldn't get it perfectly right. Yeah, right. And we said, I just can't do this, right? Oh, it's not perfect. So I'm going to move on to something else. I'm not going to do it. Right? Now, I want to throw something a little bit jolting at you guys here this morning. Perfectionism is nothing more than an excuse, period. Right? Ugh. Does that hurt a little bit? Does that sting a little bit? I know it does for me, right? When I think about that, and I know deep down in reality that's the case, right? Perfectionism is just an excuse. Now, we want to get into this, but don't get me wrong. I want you to put things out into the world that you're proud of. In fact, I'm copying right now a link here because about 3 months ago, we talked about it here on an episode called The Difference Between Good and Great. And so I'm just going to, if you haven't watched that, I'm going to pop that link in here and see if we can get it up on the banner as well. So osg.link/great. And you can go check that out. And so, yes, we do want to put stuff out there that we're proud of, right? I'm not saying just whatever kind of thing, right? But there's a difference between being proud of something and it being perfect, right? I can be very proud of something that's got flaws in it. I'm proud of myself. I have flaws, right? I'm proud of you guys. You have flaws, right? And you're perfectly imperfect, right? So when we think about this, right, when this is kind of what we're thinking about, can we then deal with perfectionism a little bit more, right? So if you know deep down that perfectionism is just an excuse, right? It's just a coping mechanism, and really it's just fear getting in our way, right? And because we need to step outside of our comfort zones. And if you guys have heard myself or Kylene or anybody around the Jack Canfield community, you'll know that we love saying that success is right outside of our comfort zone because we have seen that to be the truth. We know that's true. Whenever I step outside of my comfort zone and I do something that wasn't comfortable, I get a little bit more successful. I'm able to get a little closer to my goals, right? Do I have a long ways to go? Do I have a lot of areas of comfort zone that I got to step out of? Absolutely. And that's the great part. That's what I love about this is we get to go on this journey together towards success as small business owners because success is right outside of our comfort zone. So what I want to do with you guys here real quick is I want to watch a quick 5-minute video together by my mentor, Jack Canfield. And then let's take and digest that and then just come back and discuss how we can kind of deal with this perfectionism, this ego, this excuse, and then overcome our fears of it. So I'm going to go ahead and put that up on the screen here and we'll get that rolling.
Have you ever said something like, I've been hurt way too many times, I'm done. I'm not letting anyone get close to me again. How many times have you said this or something like this? Or how many times have you felt this way, but you've just never said it out loud? Well, chances are you have felt this way at least once or twice in your life. Pretty much everyone has at one time or another. And you may have even said the words to a friend or one of your family members. But what happened then? Did you get up, shake it off, and move on? Or are you still clinging to that earlier decision? Many people do indeed move on, even when life seems a little bumpier for them than others. But unfortunately, some people continue to live there, stuck in the hurt, the fear, the anxiety, and the disappointment and the resignation that comes from a life that isn't going the way they thought it would or the way they wanted it to. The weird part is that your ego is actually trying to protect you from further pain, but it is actually keeping you in a prison and keeping you from fully experiencing the magnificence of life and all of its joys. Now, there's no question that there is some pain in life. As the saying goes, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Now, in an attempt to shield ourselves from life's natural pains, the death of a pet, a loved one, a job, or a dream, we also sacrifice the corresponding joy of experiencing fulfilling relationships, another pet, or another fulfilling job. Now, real life is a beautiful, messy mixture of good and bad, ups and downs, smooth paths and bumpy trails. It's important to remember that each experience we have, whether we perceive it to be positive or negative, is also an opportunity for growth. The problem is that many of us have a skewed view of what is good and what is bad. Now, when you release your perception of the good and the bad in life, you will find a freedom that will allow you to grow in the most incredible ways. People will purposely or inadvertently hurt you. It's going to happen. Life will sometimes be unfair. You can't control that. But what you can control is how you let it affect you and how you respond. Remember my formula of E plus R equals O? Events plus your response to that event produce the outcomes you experience. It's not what happens to you, it's what you tell yourself about it, the meaning you make up, the story you tell that determines how you feel and what you experience. Now think about what are the things that worry you and how much of that worry is taking over your life. And then I want you to consider this. Those things you're worried about, the negative things that you think might happen, they aren't even real. Whatever it is, it hasn't happened yet. It isn't a reality yet. It's just you imagining something in the possible future. Say you're worried about not getting that job you applied for, and then you don't get it. What then? Usually you just set off on a new set of worries. How will you pay your bills? Will you ever get a job? There are any number of new worries that you can spin into and spiral down into because worry has become a habit for most people. The truth is, worry changes nothing. It's a response to an event that produces no better outcome. All it does is feed your fear and anxiety, which can paralyze you, keeping you from enjoying life and even causing you to miss out on great opportunities. That is your fear-driven ego taking over. Look at worry for what it really is and do these two things instead. First, replace your negative worrying with imagining the positive outcomes you want. It's just a simple conscious choice to change your thoughts and your images from the negative to the positive. Second, come up with some constructive actions you can take to create what you want. Ask your friends, ask some mentors or coaches for advice on possible solutions. Search the internet for answers. Read a relevant book, and then take action. Worry has been described as negative goal setting. You're just sitting there visualizing what you don't want. Now, you bring about what you think about. So if you worry about something, you're more likely to attract it into your life. If you simply replace the worry with positive thoughts and images, you're programming yourself to come up with solutions, and you're attracting through the law of attraction more of what you want in your life. Now here's your homework to complete after watching this video. Carefully choose how you respond to events in your life, how you choose to interpret the events, how you choose to think about and talk about what's happened, and how you choose to act if you want to achieve better outcomes. Has your ego ever been in control of your life? If so, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. And remember, nothing will change for the better until you do. Now, if you found this video helpful,
All right, so there we go. Loving that that thing just really hit home for me. So hopefully it hit home for you guys. Jerry, I do see your question there. Great question, but let me get to that towards the end. Okay, so that's a really good question Jerry's got for us here. Does getting too comfortable delay future success? So, all right, let me turn that off. Okay, so let's dive into this, right? What stood out for you guys? I've got my notes. Right? Obviously, I got to play ahead. So here's the first one, right? So ego is trying to protect you, right? That was the first note that showed up for me. I love the quote where he said, "Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional," and then talked about sacrificing, right? What are you sacrificing in exchange to avoid the pain? Right? I think about that in my life. What have I sacrificed to avoid pain? To not rock the boat? To kind of anticipation of things kept me from stepping outside of my comfort zone. Right? And I think it's really interesting, right? So our human body, our systems are built to keep us safe, to protect us. But we think that our, body's built to keep us safe from being attacked by the saber-toothed tiger or, not being hit by a car, having those senses and stuff like that. But our system is also there to protect us from emotional distress, right? And so when we've had some emotional past distress, our brain then logs that in, and anything that is even remotely like that then gets brought up to the front, our subconscious brain, and says, "Whoa, oh, hold on, we're not doing that. Let's walk away," right? And so we're attaching something to that looking forward, right? That worrying is the negative goal setting that he talked about. So Kylene put, "I think the meaning you attach to the events, the story you tell yourself, is really powerful to think about." I love that, Kylene. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, what other notes do we got there? And in fact, that actually perfectly leads, Kylene, into my next note. Were you looking ahead? I don't think you were, because no. But he talked about also that we've got a skewed version of what is bad, right? Like I have this skewed version of what's going to happen on a roller coaster. Right? And for me, riding the roller coaster, we know that if anybody here has ridden a roller coaster, you've got maybe a minute, 2 minutes of, exhilaration, thrill, kind of excitement. But the standing in line for 30 to 45 minutes waiting to get on that roller coaster, that to me was the killer, right? I had that anticipation because I had this skewed view that I was going to fall out, we were going to die, we were going to crash, whatever. I made up all these stories. But then when I finally was brave enough to get up to the front of the line, I really enjoyed it, right? And I would find myself wanting to get back on. Now, I'm still not a huge fan of roller coasters, but if I would have never gotten there, right? If I would have never gotten to the front of the line and actually got on one of the roller coasters, I probably would have never experienced that, right? And it was interesting. So we've got this skewed view of what is good. And the thing I think is part of that is we have this need to simplify things, right? We get hit with so much in our lives, right? We've got so much coming at us, especially nowadays in the modern world with notifications, people, things, to-do lists, everything happening all at once. And so what we've done, our mechanism to deal with that is we've tried to make everything very black or white, good or bad, right? So we've labeled everything ahead of time so we can easily categorize things as they happen, right? But we know that the world is much more complicated than that. Jack talked about that a little bit in the video there, right? So what would happen for us if we stopped assigning labels to everything and just really embrace this? And I say this all the time, and I wonder if I embrace it enough, right? I want to work on embracing this more. So maybe we can do this together. It is what it is, right? Sometimes I say that in like, it was a negative thing. It is what it is, blah, 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 move on. But what if everything just is what it is? We take it for what it's worth, a grain of salt, right? So how many times in your life has something, quote unquote, negative happened to you? And then you look back on that from a new perspective, an older, wiser self, right? New experiences, and really think about it and go, yes, it may have felt bad in the moment, and yes, it may have been negative, but was it intentionally put there in front of me? Or did it give me some gift that I would have never received before? Like I think about when my parents got divorced. Obviously, that's a very negative experience, and it was a very negative experience for me. Lots of emotions. I was not very good with dealing with emotions at that point in my life. I was in my early teens, so I was also dealing with being a teenager, mid to early teens, I guess. I was 15, 16 years old. And I thought it was terrible. My world had ended. My perfect idyllic life that I grew up in, right? I was spoiled. I had everything I could ever want. My parents loved my brother and I. We were taken care of. Life was great, right? We lived out on some acreage. We had horses. We had motorcycles and ATCs and everything a kid could want. We got to play outside whenever we wanted. Stayed at home by ourselves in the summertime and got into whatever trouble we could get into. So things were great. And then right? But in hindsight and looking back on that, it made me the man that I am today. I was spoiled. I didn't have a whole lot of work ethic or responsibility, and I was thrust into that, right? I had to go to work for my dad's company to help keep that going, and it just lots of things looking back. Now, I'm not saying I'd ever want to go through that again, right? But I've learned that it is what it is. I need to accept it for what it is, and so moving forward from things like that, how do we look at that, and how do we do a better job of leveling things out, right? We have these situations that happen, and it's the end of the world. My wife will attest to this. I'm not great at this, right? I get so upset. I screwed up some checks, and I got the wrong account number on some checks. I spent $50 on the checks, so blowing $50 was really pissed me off, right? Let's be honest about it. And I was really upset. I almost had a bad day all day. Fortunately, my wife is very understanding. She gave me space and got out of the way. But, I had to stop and think, right? Okay, it is what it is, but what's the bigger picture, right? I was tired of juggling money. It was the case. And so when $50 got blown, when, things are a little lean, then yikes, right? So how do you label that stuff? And how does this come back to perfectionism? Because I think, again, perfectionism is just that coping mechanism. And I think that coping mechanism shows up because we're labeling things, right? It has to be perfect. It has to be good. If it's not good, it's not going to move me forward. Well, the reality is it will move you forward just by moving forward. Just the actual action itself will move you forward, right? I also had this discussion at my men's group that I'm part of this week, that we put some people or events or goals kind of way up on the pedestals and others way down, right? Bad people, negative things, right? But the truth is, the only thing that is actually going to move us one way or the other is that how we respond to things. Our actions are what move us one way or the other, right? So just thinking about that. All right. So that's one thing for me that came out of all that. Again, we're talking about overcoming perfectionism, but I think we've got to go down into the root here and overcome the things that are holding us back. Right. So what did Kylene say here? She says, you were very hard on yourself, but you used your tools to get through it and not get stuck. Absolutely. Thank you, Kylene. I felt like I did. It took me a second, right? And that's okay. Sometimes you got to take a second, right? And sometimes it's okay. You've got to, and understanding that little kind of fit that I had was just a marker for me, right? It is what it is. So I appreciate Kylene giving me the space on that. All right. So that was the next thing. And the next note that I have, and again, any notes that you guys have from that video, I'm happy to share. I've got your question in there, Jerry, we're going to get to here as we get towards the end. But the second thing was that these perfectionism deals, right? They're really just limiting beliefs, right? If we truly believe that perfectionism is just an excuse that's stopping us, it's something's worrying us, we're worried that it's not going to be good enough, right? You've got a limiting belief inside of you. And I think we believe, we're adults, we can overcome whatever happened to us as kids, and we're very resilient and all that stuff. 100% true. But you've also built up all of this protection mechanism on top of the things you need to do. Right? So Kylene and I do a monthly workshop called Unlocking Your Potential. Right? And this has been a massive tool for me. And I've shared this with anybody that'll listen, that this tool has been huge for me. And so we started doing this workshop because we wanted to share that tool with more people. Well, we just had a date last Friday, November 18th, and we had 0 people sign up. So what's stopping you, right? Well, there's this massively valuable tool for you to overcome limiting beliefs. So if you're finding that you've got perfectionism, well, maybe you've got a limiting belief stuck in there, right? So why not, right? Why would you not do that? Does it seem out there for you? Does it seem like it's not going to be of value? Here's the deal. If you want to show up and you're like, I don't want to spend, I think we charge $30 for something like that. I don't want to spend $30, but I do want to show up. I'm committed to showing up. Okay, show up. Let me know, right? Be brave enough to ask me, right? To reach out and say, hey, I want to come, but I'm not sure I can spend the $30 on it. Okay, show up, right? For those of you that have been already and you still are finding yourself stuck in some places, we've always said once you've come once, you're always invited back, right? So why not? Why not do that? So I'm going to put the banner up on the screen here for those of you that are tuned in live. If you want to go check it out, the next opportunity, it's oursuccessgroup.com/unlock. And for those of you listening live, the next opportunity will be December 8th. If you're listening to the podcast version, will be a little bit after that. So there's more scheduled, and we're working on some new opportunities for that coming up in the new year as well. But December 8th at 11 a.m. Central Time, just go to oursuccessgroup.com/unlock and check that out, right? And again, I understand. So I'm not sitting here talking down. I'm not on a pedestal talking down to you saying, what are your excuses? You're terrible. You've got, right? No, what I'm saying is I understand that there's excuses. But let's identify those as excuses and reasons and see if we can overcome them, right? What's getting in the way? What's stopping you? What's holding you back from taking that step forward? And that's the perfectionism, right? Where you go, Aaron, we're talking about overcoming perfectionism. It all circles right back. We got to get in deep. We got to dig deep. So Jerry says, I want to show up again. Timing didn't work for me this time. Perfect. That timing thing, I love it. So, okay, let's find the timing that will work for you, right? So love it, Jerry. Thank you so much. And Jerry is one of those people that has been brave enough to show up. And I get it, right? It's not, we're going to do a meditation. Ugh, does that weird anybody out? I don't know. It did me for a long time. I was so ignorant to things that I'm like, oh, that's too woo, it's silly. And so even when I was getting involved in the Jack Canfield stuff, I avoided that. Right. And I was going, why am I not getting further along? Why am I not growing at the rate that I feel like I should be growing? And finally, I gave myself that gift to go, you know what? I'm going to leave the ego at the door. I'm going to get into this uncomfortable thing and I'm going to do it. And I cried for 20 minutes in front of a lady on Zoom that I had just met about 5 minutes before. Right. And so I felt those emotions. It sucked. It hurt. And yet I've been able to move forward in so many ways. So, right. Again, if I would just label it, right. Okay. So love it. Thank you, Jerry, for sharing. That's really awesome of you. So again, oursuccessgroup.com/unlock. All right. So limiting beliefs, worries. The other thing that, and Jack kind of was around this, but this kind of really showed up for me as I was thinking about some of the things he said, was we've got this connotation about failure, right? About the word fail and how negative that is, right? But just like fear, if we can take fear and turn that into an acronym, fantasized experiences appearing real, I think we can take fail and turn that into an acronym and start reducing that effect, that negative effect on us. What if we were to say FAIL just stands for the first attempt in learning, right? And then if we take that a step further and we go, okay, failure is a first attempt in learning. Learning's good, right? I want to learn. I want to be a lifelong learner. I think those of you that spend your time to show up here or listening to the podcast version, you're a learner, right? You want to be growing, right? And so those are all good things, a first attempt in learning. Right? It could be the first attempt. It could be the next attempt. That's just the next first attempt, right? But here's the deal. Perfectionism does not allow that first attempt to happen. Let me say it one more time. Perfectionism does not allow that first attempt to happen. Right? So as Jack was talking about the fear and worry and being able to overcome that stuff, my question to you guys is there are some other resources and tools that we at our success group we've put out there. I've got a webinar called Conquer Fear and Thrive. If you go over to our website at oursuccessgroup.com, you'll see up in the top left corner it says Conquer Fear. Right? Who that's listening in, podcast version or otherwise, who here that's listening in is actually taking the time to watch that? And then the next step, who here is taking the time to watch that and then start implementing some of the tools and resources in there, right? Because again, I'm sharing these things because I feel that they've been very powerful for me. And so if they're not powerful for you, then I want to know about it. How can we do better? How can we improve, right? That was my first attempt, maybe, right? That was an attempt to put something out there that I believe can help people move forward. So if you'll go to osg.link/overcome fear, and I will put that up on screen for those of you tuned in live, and I will pop it into the comments as well. Check that out, right? Go watch it again if you have already watched it before, right? It's there. It's absolutely free. It's just an opportunity to take some tools that I learned, and I took them and translated them as best I could, and put it out there. So fear, worry, I get it. I'm right there with you guys. I deal with this every day. And so I've got these tools that I lean on, and I'm not perfect every day, right? I don't have perfectionism, and therefore I can show up when I need to show up, right? And I can try things. I can get feedback. I can learn from you guys. So you guys can do that same thing. What's holding you back, right? You know what it is. I think that's the other interesting part about all this when I think about perfectionism. We deep down know what is holding us back. We just don't. It's just not comfortable enough yet. We haven't given ourselves the tools. We haven't taken enough risks. We haven't taken enough actions to allow that to come out, right? It's all in here. It's all inside of us. We just need to translate it out and then deal with it, heal, and move forward. So check that out, Overcome Fear. So osg.link/overcome fear. Check that out. Let me take that banner down for you. I have to get a producer for this here one of these days. All right. And then, okay, so the next point that I had, and again, if there's any points that you guys had from that video, and if you're just tuning in, you can be team replay and put the comments back in. That's totally cool. And I will get in there and engage with you guys once those comments start showing up for team replay there. The part that always strikes me so clearly when I'm stuck, right? And I finally get out the other side. And the crazy part is it's only clear after I get out the other side. Right. So I told the story about the checks and how upset that I got about the checks. Right. And in the moment, I was like, I was just so frustrated. And I once I got out the other side of that, I'm like, I've got all of these resources. I've got all the tools and strategies. They're all so readily available. Right? I talk about them all the time. If you guys are listening, I imagine you are probably starting to talk to people about some of these things all the time yourself. And what I noticed is I'm just looking in the wrong place, right? As a business owner, we cannot let ourselves be stuck for too long in the surface level shiny object stuff, right? All of those worries and, this isn't working, or the customer issue, or this or that, right? I get it. We all deal with them every day. But if that's what's keeping you stuck from sharing your true gift and passion, then get over that. You've got all the tools, right? We've got these ability to conquer fears. We've got these meditations we can do. Just take a deep breath. Reset, allow the brain to work and not be in fight, flight, or fawn, I think is, I'm learning more about that, right? So, and here's another kind of like light bulb moment for me when I was thinking about this in terms of what business owners are, and when we let ourselves get stuck in the things that don't really matter all that much, that we can just say, it is what it is. Okay, thank you. Next, right? And so I had another light bulb moment. For those of you tuned in live, this would have been yesterday. I had two very successful women on the Two Regular Guys podcast. We do a quarterly women in garment decorating, and I just happened to meet such an amazing opportunity to meet these two women in the Women in Print Alliance that's put on by Printing United Alliance. So, and they were sharing some tips about how they've managed, right? How they got from point A to where they're at in the success in their lives currently, and where they're headed, and what they do. And the thing that really stood out to me is they don't focus too much on the surface level stuff, right? They focus on overcoming their fears. They focus on pushing outside of their comfort zones, and they just let the surface level stuff, the learning, right? They're always educating themselves. They're always getting better. So they're always growing. But that didn't seem to be what was hanging them up, right? How can I get better at doing the thing, right? One of them was big time into wraps. The other is an engineer and chemist, right? So, and neither of them talked a whole lot about the actual doing of learning that stuff, right? What they talked about was having a balance, right? Having a purpose and feeling fulfilled and having clarity of what they're doing, and then using those tools to then set boundaries and going after what was important to them. Right? Finding what was important to them and then going after it. And it led one of them, in fact, it led both of them to start their own businesses. Right? So, I think a lot of the reasons that people start their business, and I would imagine this resonates for a lot of you guys, is you want to be able to express yourself, your passions, share your gifts in your way without being held back, right? You've got some reason that you need to do this yourself. Otherwise, again, I'm not saying that you should, but just having a job and showing up, clocking in and clocking out, and leaving it at the office and letting somebody else worry about it at night, right? Wouldn't that be a lot easier, right? But to have the ability to create what you want, that's such a cool feeling. And then we can, be in control of what we earn, how we live, all that kind of fun stuff. So that really stood out to me, is that two very successful women, what they were talking about most was dealing with some of those deeper things and not worrying too much about the surface level stuff. And I think that's another way that we can really overcome our perfectionism. So I'm getting towards the end of what I have to share with you guys. If there's any other comments that you guys have, or things that stood out from that video that we watched, or just questions about perfectionism in general, I want to do that. Jerry, I'm going to get to your question here in just one second. But before I do that, the other thing I'd love for you guys that are tuned in live to share with me right now is what will you, based on what we just talked about here today, what will you be putting out in the world today or very soon that you've been holding back on, right? That maybe perfectionism was keeping you stuck, right? What is it that you can just put out there and get feedback on and have that first attempt in learning, right? So I'll share mine in just a second. I actually just got it out last week and have been sharing it more. So because I realized that I needed to do that. And Facebook user says, I live with a perfectionist. Well, maybe share this video with them then. Hey, I'm not saying, I think we all are at some level, right? So that's a good one. All right. Wendy says, I have learned that perfectionism is not that for each of us. Mike is much more technical. I'm much more customer experience. Sometimes I mesh and sometimes we both look at the other side. Absolutely. And I think that's one thing too, right? Is yes, we all have different areas that we feel like we have to be perfect in. But again, if any of that's ever holding us back, and I think that's what I'm saying when I'm talking about wanting to overcome perfectionism. Go back to what I said earlier on. I want you to put stuff out there that you're proud of, right? But putting something out there that you're proud of doesn't mean it has to be perfect, right? And I talked just about the fact, like, we are imperfect beings. And yet we can still be very proud of ourselves, right? My son is somebody I'm extremely proud of. Both of my sons, in fact. I'm extremely proud of them. But do they have imperfections? Certainly, they're humans, right? So it's okay to put something out there that you're proud of that might have an imperfectionism. And that's the real point here, is I want you guys to understand that if perfectionism's holding you back, I hear this all the time, right? I see people going, oh, I spent all this time on this. Okay, cool. If that's a value to you to spend that time, great. But if you know that it's keeping you from getting to your idea of success because you're not putting stuff out there, or you're spending too much time that you don't have and now you're behind, or whatever, right? You know you need to improve it. Then that's what this is all about. These are the techniques, because if we understand that kind of thing, that kind of perfectionism is actually just a fear or a worry or this kind of negative goal setting, right? Then we have a much better tool to deal with it. So I will share mine in a second, but I'm really excited to hear what you guys are going to be putting out there into the world in the very not so distant future, today if possible, that maybe perfectionism has been holding you back from. And I will share mine in just a second, like I said, but I do want to get to Jerry's comment here. Jerry says, does getting too comfortable delay future success? And I love this question. This is such a great question, Jerry, because it helps us get into something a little bit deeper. And again, like everything, right? We could go yes or no. That's a yes or no question. Does getting too comfortable delay future success? Yes or no? Right? But the reality is things are much more complicated than yes or no, right? And that goes back to what we talked about with kind of labeling things, because comfortable is not necessarily a bad thing if you're happy, right? If you're content, if you're, right? So let's say you have achieved your idea of success. Can it be good to just be comfortable? Absolutely. You earn that opportunity to just be comfortable. Right? But if you start feeling like there's more for you, you're not fulfilled, you need to do more or be more, then that's where comfort becomes a problem, right? Because when we have comfort, but yet we still have a yearning to do and be more, that's when we need to get outside of our comfort zone. If we have comfort, if we're at peace, if we've transcended, right? All sorts of words we can use for this, then being comfortable is good, because you find yourself being comfortable in everything that you need to do to be successful. So comfort and success don't always equal 1 + 1 = 2, right? 1 + 1 might equal something else. So, but staying in comfort too long when you know that there's future success that you want will absolutely delay that future success, because the longer you stay in comfort, when you know that there's something more out there for you, the longer it's going to take for you to get there. So the other side of this, though, that I want to share before I quit, and love to hear anybody's feedback on this, but the last bit that I want to share on this too is to also understand that we can't go from comfortable to way far outside of our comfort zone and crazy, right? We just can't go from 0 to 1,000,000 miles an hour and sustain that. Right? It takes too much energy. It takes too much. It takes too much from us. We have to do it in little small increments. We got to step a toe outside the comfort zone, heal, repair, gain energy back, step another toe, and just keep moving forward, right? So if I'm going this way now, so we're going to keep moving forward. And that was for those of you watching the video side of things, a visual of my hands keep moving forward, because I realized I was getting off screen over here on the other side. So hopefully that answers that, Jerry. It's a great question. Thank you for asking that. And Facebook user says, great answer. And Wendy says, it's funny putting it out there feels braggy to me, but if it's something someone else has done, I can brag on them all day long. Yeah. And there's something there, right? There's something deep inside of there, Wendy, that's giving you that. And again, when we start labeling braggy, right, on top of these things, then again, we're not able to just live in the moment and express ourselves. But like you said, if it's somebody else, you can brag on them all day. So understanding that that's a label and that's a choice, I'm not saying it's going to fix it, but it will allow you to start thinking differently about those things when you feel like you're bragging to put something out there. Because Wendy, there's a lot for you to quote unquote brag about. And the great part is you're sharing all this stuff. This is what I love about Wendy is she shares freely with everybody, competitor or otherwise, right? She's really good about that. And she really cares about other people. She cares about our success group and the community as a whole. And so to then understand that Wendy also then might feel a little bit like she's bragging is so heartfelt to me, because there's somebody that is just worth getting to know, worth kind of emulating as somebody that's humble and true to herself. So thank you, Wendy. Just remember that might be a label. So if you see that and go, that's a label. Do I really need to label it that way? Does that, just stop it. If we think about the labels as an opportunity to kind of just stop ourselves and get out of the subconscious and maybe just think about it. Maybe it's not going to change anything, and that's okay. Don't feel like that's a loss, that you didn't do something. If you go, that's just a label, but yet I still can't do it, that's okay. What's a little thing that I can do to get a little bit closer? So I feel getting comfortable gives you a chance to breathe and recharge. For myself, if I take comfort in where I am in my business, it gives me time to explore and dream. Absolutely. And I love that's I'm so glad that you shared that, because I think that hopefully helps understand my answer a little bit more too. I think Wendy kind of took that a little bit a step further. Yeah, it's not bad to be comfortable. What we want to try to overcome is staying in comfort for the sake of staying in comfort, not for the sake of recharging. Breathe and recharge, explore, dream. I love that. So just being part of that cycle. So adding that on. So Wendy makes me better all the time. I love it. All right. Facebook user says, I'm the same, Wendy. It's so difficult to brag on myself, right? And so if we can just get rid of that label, how about it's so difficult to brag on myself, but it's not difficult to share my gift with the world. Psst, it's the same thing. Okay. Hi, Sandy. All right. Yeah, StreamYard. osg.links/FU for Facebook user. All right. You guys are awesome. Okay. So I promised that I was going to share something of mine that perfectionism was getting me, right? Something holding me back. So you guys may have heard that there's this new opportunity. It's called Consult with Me. In fact, you can probably see, those of you that are tuned in live, you can see right above me over here, the QR code up there will take you to it, or right below me down here, consultaaron.com. This is a cool new program that Volley has put out where it allows people to kind of share and put together packages where we can help and do things in an asynchronous way to be able to help and support more people. And I was actually part of the beta program with this, so I got to see all the stuff before it went live. And so I actually had a head start, right? And I was like, okay, go, this is so cool. I was so excited about it. I started doing the work, and then I started getting into it, right? And it wasn't perfect. Oh, I didn't like the video, right? And then it goes live, and everybody else gets to see it, and everybody else put their pages out there, and I still hadn't. And I said to myself, what is it that why am I not, right? What's holding me back? I didn't have the right offers. I didn't have the right information. I didn't have the right videos. Nobody was going to sign up for it, right? All the fears, all the worries, all the self-doubt started showing up. And I finally was able to overcome that through using these tools that we've talked about, taking the small steps, baby steps. So I put a video out there. I didn't share the page with anybody else other than the people that were part of the beta program, so I could get feedback from people that were doing the other things, and going from there. And so the interesting part about that was then I got feedback, right? People were like, oh, that's great, Aaron. Here's a couple little things that you might do. Okay. And then I got a little bit better. And then I shared it with some more people, and I got some more feedback, and I got a little bit better, right? Is it perfect right now? No, it's never going to be perfect, but I'm proud of it, right? So it's now out there, and I try to share it with as many people as I can. So consultaaron.com, go check it out. I want your feedback, right? See if that's what you think about it, right? What can I do better? What package could I offer in there that would be helpful for people, right? If you're an OSG member, you know that you get all that stuff inside of OSG, right? So if you're an OSG member, just go check it out, right? and tell me what you think, right? To me, this is a way to like help people understand what we're trying to do with our success group. And so it's like that little entry point. And so I love it. So consultaaron.com. You could actually go to coachosg.com too. I got them both heading over there. All right. So that was what was holding me back. So please check that out. Now, what is it that you're going to be putting out in the world that you've been holding back on? How are you going to overcome the perfectionism? What perfectionism has been getting in your way, and what are you going to do to get beyond it, right? That's what I want to know from you guys. And here's the great news is the fix is really simple, right? It's simply a choice, right? Now, that choice is not always easy, right? That choice isn't necessarily always going to be the easy choice. And we have to overcome years of programming, years of that strengthening of our inner critic that we've done, years of feeling like we've let ourselves down, years of feeling like maybe we had let others down, years of feeling like somebody was telling us that we let them down, right? As a parent, I'm just horrified by how much I'm ruining my son each and every day, because the reality is that we want to protect them, but that's not always the best thing to do, right? And so I know I'm not ruining him. I know I'm trying to give him the best tools we can, but I love him very deeply. I know my parents love me very deeply. And yet there are things that happened that I just needed. Now I have to make a choice to get over those things, right? So it's only in that moment, it's in that choice that anything actually matters, right? So going back to that quote that Jack Canfield said in the video, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So think about that, right? If we're labeling things, if we're choosing to go down the negative path, then guess what? We're going to suffer. It's going to hurt. It's going to suck. But that's optional, right? So that's the great news. It's super simple to do this. You have to make a choice. Just not easy. You got to work on it. So I want you to think about what small choices can you make today, right? Maybe later today too, tomorrow, next week, and really just kind of so on and so forth, right? Build these things up and put enough out there so that you can learn, improve, and ultimately you're going to unleash your masterpiece, so to speak, right? If we're going for perfectionism, the reason we want to go for perfectionism is we think it's our masterpiece. It's worth all of this time and energy. But to put it out there, right? To learn, to improve, to unleash, to build a little bit every day, right? So this is what I really truly love about being a business owner, is that what we're doing as business owners is just the commerce facing way for us to kind of share our gifts with the world, right? Regardless of what you think it is that you do, you are sharing your gift with the world. Oh, it's just a t-shirt. Who cares? Not true, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. It's your gift, right? You have this ability to do this And whatever it is about your special ability, right? Maybe in Wendy's case, I know it's her ability to connect with people and that customer service, and her customers love us, and her gift is just making them feel special, right? She happens to be doing that with a t-shirt or a hat or a jacket, but her gift is making people feel special, and that's her masterpiece, right? And so that's why the perfectionism shows up in the customer service side of things. So, what is that for you? Right? So what are you going to be putting out into the world today that you've been holding back on? All right. So that's what I've got for you guys. I want to see what we got here in the comments. So jump in there. Wendy says, great message for this time of year for me as we are working so hard. Thank you. Absolutely. That's a great point, Wendy, right? And when we get caught up in the day-to-day, and we got to do it, right? We're working hard. If you're an embroiderer, Eric was saying this yesterday on the half, this is embroidery season. Outerwear is a big embroidery thing, right? And so this is embroidery, and then gifts and holidays, and then you've got actually the personal side of the holidays. We're going to Fulton today for to do early Thanksgiving with my dad, and so we're kind of planning for all that, right? So I love it, Wendy. I appreciate you saying so. All right, you guys. Well, that's what I've got for you. Appreciate you spending some time with me here this morning. Hopefully that was helpful, and you guys have got some tools now. Here's the deal: you've always had the tools, but now let's make them conscious tools that we can use, and let's start overcoming that perfectionism. So. Let me know if you have anything else, but put it in the comments. If your team replay, put it in the comments, and I'll jump in there as well. If you were catching the podcast version, come on over to our Facebook page or YouTube page and put some things in the comments, or just email success@oursuccessgroup.com, or go check out consultaaron.com and see what's over there. Maybe we can help you out with some things over there. So. Everybody, you guys have a great rest of your Saturday, and I will talk to everybody again really soon. Oh, by the way, those of you tuned in live, no Small Business Saturday next week for Thanksgiving, and no two regular guys. So just a week off. Enjoy time with your family if you're here in the United States. Be thankful. Put it out there. Share what you're thankful for. All right. Have a great weekend.